Everyone selling you a tiny home wants you to believe you need $40,000, a trailer from a specialty fabricator, and a loft ladder that will eventually wreck your knees. None of that is true. If your goal is a real one-level master bedroom tiny home, and you want the absolute lowest price on the market in 2026, the path is not a kit, it is not a container, and it is not a builder. The path is you, a stack of standard lumber from the orange or blue box store down the street, and a willingness to swing a hammer on weekends for a few months. And before anyone gets confused, $0 ego does not mean this house costs $0. It means you drop the pride of luxury brand names and custom finishes, because that ego is the single most expensive thing in this entire project. Stick around, because by the end of this video, I'm going to walk you through the exact structural approach, the material list logic, and the cost traps that turn a cheap build into an expensive one. Before we go further, hit subscribe on Home Intel. This channel is built on the same idea as a tiny home itself. No fluff. No sponsor pushing you toward a product. Just the real numbers and the real trade-offs, so you can build smart instead of building fast. Why ground floor master changes everything. Most tiny home content on YouTube in 2026 is still obsessed with loft bedrooms because a loft lets you shrink the footprint and dodge certain code triggers. But lofts have a real cost that never shows up on a spec sheet. They cost you your knees at 50. They cost you the ability to age in place. And they cost you actual usable volume, because a loft ceiling is rarely more than 4 feet of headroom. A ground floor master means your build has to be a little wider or a little longer to hit the same square footage. And that additional footprint is exactly why people assume ground floor designs cost more. They do not have to. You are trading loft framing complexity for a slightly bigger simple rectangle. And simple rectangles are the cheapest shape in construction. The foundation decision that sets your entire budget. The single biggest cost lever in this whole project is whether you build on a trailer or on a permanent foundation. A heavy-duty triple-axle trailer frame custom built for a tiny home typically runs $5,000 to $9,000 before you place a single stud, and it also caps your width under the road legal towing limit in every state, which is exactly 8 feet 6 inches or 102 inches, without an oversized load permit. If your land is yours and you do not need to move the structure down the highway, a post and pier or skid foundation keeps your structural base under $2,000, which frees up a huge portion of your budget for interior finishes instead. This is the first fork in the road, and it is the one every cheap build guide skips because trailer builders sponsor a lot of that content. Standard materials is the whole strategy. The phrase standard materials is doing a lot of work in this build, and it deserves to be unpacked. It means 2x4 framing on 16-inch centers using construction-grade lumber from a big box store. It means standard 4x8 sheet goods for subfloor and sheathing so you get zero cut waste. It means a standard 30x80 exterior door and standard size windows instead of custom units. And it means a simple gable or shed roof using common rafter spans instead of anything trussed or engineered off-site. Every time you deviate from a stock dimension, whether that is a window, a door, or a roof pitch, you pay a custom fabrication premium. The entire cost advantage of this approach comes from designing your floor plan around what the lumberyard already stocks rather than designing your dream layout, and then hunting for materials to match it. Sizing the footprint without wasting a board. For a true ground floor master with a bathroom and a small kitchen, you are typically looking at something in the 200 to 320 square foot range, depending on how minimal your kitchen is. The trick to keeping costs down is choosing dimensions that are multiples of 4 feet, because standard OSB and plywood sheathing sheets are exactly 4x8 feet, and matching your footprint to that size cuts cutting time to essentially zero on both the subfloor and the exterior walls. A 12x20 footprint, a 14x24 footprint, or a 16x20 footprint are all going to frame faster and waste less material than an odd dimension like 13x22. This single decision, picking dimensions in 4-foot increments, can save you hundreds of dollars in wasted sheet goods alone, and it eliminates a genuinely painful scrap pile at the end of your build. Framing the walls yourself. Stick framing with standard 2x4 studs at 16 inches on center is still, in 2026, the cheapest wall system available to a DIY builder with basic tools. You do not need a nail gun crew or a crane. You need a circular saw, a level, a speed square, and patience. Wall sections can be built flat on the subfloor and tilted up by two people, which is exactly how tiny homes have been built by owner-builders for years. If you want a little more thermal performance without a big cost jump, 2x6 framing gives you room for more insulation at a marginal lumber cost increase, and in cold climates this is worth a small upcharge. Stick with 16-inch centers rather than 24-inch centers on your 2x6 walls. 24-inch spacing is technically legal under advanced framing techniques in the building code, but as a first-time builder you want your studs lining up cleanly with standard 4-foot-wide sheathing and interior panels, and 16-inch centers makes that alignment far more forgiving. The roof is where people overspend. A lot of first-time builders get talked into a complex roof line because it looks nicer in renderings, but every hip, valley, and dormer you add is a multiplier on labor time and waste. A simple shed roof or a basic gable roof using common rafters cut on site from standard 2x6 or 2x8 lumber is the cheapest roof structure you can build, and also sheds water and snow just as well as anything fancier. Metal roofing panels in a standard corrugated profile are typically the cheapest durable roofing material per square foot in 2026, and they install fast even for a first-time builder. Insulation and utilities without the contractor markup. Fiberglass bats sized to your stud cavity are still the cheapest insulation option, and they are entirely DIY-friendly, no special equipment required. For plumbing, running standard PX tubing instead of copper is both cheaper and dramatically easier for a non-plumber to install correctly. For electrical, a small sub-panel fed from an existing service or a properly sized generator setup keeps you out of expensive utility company hookup fees if you are building off-grid or on rural land. None of this requires a licensed contractor if your local code allows owner-installed systems, which many rural counties do, though you should always check your specific jurisdiction before running gas or doing a permanent electrical tie-in. The interior finish strategy that keeps costs down. Inside, the cheapest finish path in terms of labor is unpainted or lightly finished plywood walls instead of drywall and mudding. To be fully honest with you, high-grade ACX plywood or cabinet-grade birch panels can actually cost a bit more per sheet than standard sheetrock, so this is not really a raw material discount. What it does is skip weeks of tedious drywall mudding, sanding, and finishing labor, which is exactly the kind of time and effort a first-time solo builder wants to avoid. A lot of the most popular tiny home interiors in 2026 actually lean into this exposed look intentionally because it reads as warm and cabin-like rather than unfinished. For flooring, a simple vinyl plank product installs quickly over a plywood subfloor and costs a fraction of tile, while still being fully water-resistant in the bathroom area. The real total cost range. Building this way, on your own land, using a pier foundation, standard stick framing, and DIY labor for everything except maybe the final electrical inspection, most owner-builders in 2026 are landing somewhere between $15,000 and $30,000 total for a complete 250 to 300 square foot ground floor master tiny home. That number assumes zero permit fees, no heavy site excavation, and basic off-the-shelf finishes throughout. So if your county charges significant permit fees, or your land needs grading and clearing before you can even break ground, budget on top of this range, not inside it. The number moves heavily based on your local land cost, your window and door choices, and whether you already own basic tools. Because labor, not materials, is the largest cost you are eliminating with this approach. The honest trade-off nobody talks about. This path is genuinely the cheapest, but it costs you time, it costs you sweat equity, and requires you to actually learn framing, basic plumbing, and basic electrical rather than writing a check to someone else who already knows. If your time is worth more to you than the money you would save, a builder or a kit might be the better choice for your life. But if you have the weekends and the willingness to learn, this is how you get a real one-level master bedroom home for the lowest honest number on the market in 2026. That is the real path to the cheapest ground floor master tiny home you can build in 2026, no gimmicks, no sponsor pushing a kid at you. If this helped you plan your build, subscribe to Home Intel for more honest, data-driven breakdowns like this one, and drop a comment with your target square footage so future videos can dig into the exact plan that fits your build.